17 after 2, they're the worst. Then here's me in the second half. This team looks awesome. I'm very dramatic when I watch football. Steelers coming all the way back to clinch the AFC North. Former Steeler Mike Vick back with us now. Mike, A, you want to watch football with me on Sunday? More importantly, B, did the comeback restore your faith in the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Jenna, I honestly have to admit it restored my faith because my faith was gone. That first half, I'm sitting there trying to wonder what was going wrong with my former team. I was distraught. I was upset. I was disappointed. The run game wasn't there. Big Ben wasn't pushing the ball down the field, and that's my guy, man. I love him to death, but he knows I'll point him out I'll point it out when it's not going right. And for them to find themselves in the second half, to put it all together, to beat a team like the Colts, is going to do wonders for them going into the playoffs. I said yesterday they just needed some positives to take into the postseason, and I felt like yesterday, was a prime example of what they could do potentially. This team was 10-0 before everything came to an abrupt, ending in terms of, them winning. But this team has enough talent, regardless of the players that's out, regardless of who's out there on the field. They have enough talent to win and compete, against the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just wanted them to show that they still had something left in the tank and that they weren't tanking. So, it restored my faith. I'm happy for my old squad. And, man, they got to continue to pick it up, and they got to take this momentum into the postseason.
Mike, I grew up in a nice little brick house on 241 Mayflower Street, 15206, on the east side of town in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I bleed black and gold. The day I was drafted, I had a Pittsburgh Steelers blanket wrapped on my lap. I was actually drafted in Pittsburgh, right? So this is a big deal for me to see the Pittsburgh Steelers get back on track. I chose them to actually be my AFC team, all right, in the Super Bowl. But the reality is this game was more about the Colts and less about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm sorry, but I have to be honest, and I'm going to get a lot of text messages, a lot of calls from my friends and family in Pittsburgh. Here's the issue. On offense, they went into 4-minute mode at the end of the second quarter. They were up 24-7, and they went into preservation mode. That's the worst thing you can do against a team that is hungry, scratching and clawing like the Pittsburgh Steelers. On the defensive side, they had so many penalties at the wrong time. Holding calls, defensive pass interferences, and then they also gave up the big play. That's why they lost. They imploded. They had everything they needed to get the job done. This was more about the Colts and less about the Steelers. They have real issues in Pittsburgh, and they need to address them before playoff time happens. They only have a week to get it done.
Well, if they were going into 4-minute mode and trying to preserve the win, the best thing they could have done is put in Jacoby Brissett. Because Jacoby's not going to make a lot of plays, but he's not going to make a lot of mistakes. And I'm not here to say I told you so about Phillip Rivers, but I am here to say I told you so about Phillip Rivers. Listen, man, Phillip Rivers is what he is.
I don't get it.
Great stats. You look at the end of his career, and you're going to say, oh, my God, look at those numbers. And then you're going to look at the playoff resume, and you're going to say, oh, my God, look at those numbers. Listen, and this, by the way, for the Colts, playoffs around the corner, Phillip Rivers is going to start giving the ball away. So for the Steelers, this is a massive win because it gives them a bye. You might say, Nick, the Chiefs locked up the 1 seed. Yeah, they did. But the Steelers now can give themselves a bye in Week 17. By the way, Vegas thinks they're going to do it. They're 7-point underdogs in Week 17. Vegas thinks they're going to rest Big Ben. I do, too. You can go into the playoffs saying, we just played our best half of offensive and defensive football all year. We're going to rest everybody. And then you're going to go into the postseason and look around and say, all right, aside from Mahomes and the Chiefs, who do we got to go through? The Bills and Josh Allen, who has 0 career playoff wins. The Ravens and Lamar, who has 0 career playoff wins. The Browns and Baker, who has 0 career playoff wins. The Dolphins with the Fitzpatrick-Tua combo, 0 career playoff wins. The Titans, maybe, the Titans aren't locked in yet, with Ryan Tannehill with his 2 career playoff wins last season. And then the Colts, who are probably now going to miss the postseason. So if you're a Steelers fan, you got to feel like you just saved your season. You're going to finish the year now 12-4. You're going to rest everybody in week 17, and you're going to feel good about yourselves going into the year. And if you're a Colts fan, you're saying, man, I hope Phil Rivers takes that high school job next year, because you're going to miss the playoffs because you blew a 17-point lead against a team that was falling apart in the weeks leading up to it.
Okay, here's my take. This reminds me of, this happens about once a year, when a guy, and it's always a guy, falls into a zoo enclosure, like he falls in with the lions, and then he escapes, and I'm like, oh, thank goodness, and it's a big celebration. Escaped. Like, hey, celebrate the fact that you're out, but we got some real questions of how you put yourself in this spot that deserves no celebration at all, deserves a stern look and a furrowed brow. So, Mike, those questions are this. Why are we always down? Why are we down 17 points? And the other thing, when we talk about balanced attack, why do we refuse to run the ball? They had 5 yards starting the fourth quarter. 5 yards. So the fact that they're this committed to Big Ben airing it out, willing to fall behind games, look for miracles, look for Phillip Rivers interceptions, and then just a refusal to run the game. They ended the game with 20 rushing yards. The lack of a balanced attack is very worrisome for me.
Yeah, well, I think when they look at themselves on tape and the things that they do well versus the things that they don't, you know, it's there. It's evident. We don't run the football well, but regardless of what, you still have to continue to attempt to run the football to neutralize the defense. They just don't do it well. They don't have the personnel to do it. James Conner hasn't stepped up. He's not hitting the holes. I think, you know, when they had a guy like Le'Veon Bell, the offensive line might not have been, you know, the most healthiest or at his peak. But Le'Veon found a way to make things work. And if they don't have that type of back, then the rushing yards are not going to be generated. So what do? They lean on Big Ben, lean on the guy who's the magic man for the franchise, who's been that way and for a long time. And I would too. So if it takes for Big Ben to have to throw it 40 to 50 times, you know, throughout the pro season, then so be it. You know, you are what you are.
All right, let's move on. You guys see this yesterday in Vegas? Ryan Fitzpatrick coming on in relief of Tua did the most Fitzy thing imaginable. The no look because I nearly got my head pulled off pass to the Dolphins, get him in position to win the game. One of the most amazing finishes